button. Hi. Hey, Chris. How's it going?
Doing well, thank you very much.
Long time no see. How is life in the Midwest treating you?
Life's good. We finally have some warm weather, so we're happy about that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on my show today. My show is called Inspiring Innovators, and I have been really inspired by you. We had actually met at an event at Manny Lopez's event, and I was like, I got to have you on our show to talk about networking and all the things that you do to make your entrepreneurs and your clients succeed. So our show is based on 7 categories of overall wellness, from emotional, financial, physical, spiritual, environmental, social, and fun. And I know you always have really fun events planned for your business owners and your entrepreneurs, or even people just wanting to become one. You're an amazing coach. So today I'd like to start with our first topic, which is the importance of networking. Can you explain to us, our audience, what is the importance of networking and what does it mean to your business?
Yeah, networking is, I think everyone understands that networking is important because when we go out into the business world, we'll hear that advice all the time. Get out there and get your name out there, go out and network. The
Mhm.
problem, however, is that most of us were never taught how to network and exactly what does that mean. So oftentimes in the business world, we're taught how to sell and we're taught
Mhm.
how to prospect. And that's part of the benefits of networking is that you get prospects and you get sales, but it's a small piece of it. There's so much more to networking. So to me, networking is not so much to going to events and prospecting to see how many cards we can give out and how many we can collect and set a sales appointment, because that's not really networking. What networking is simply building relationships with one another so that we can
Mhm.
share resources back and forth and create a win-win situation together. So just having that definition of building relationships, sharing resources, creating a win-win
Mhm.
automatically relaxes us to where we're not so focused on the sales or the pitch, but just getting to know the person, because every business is run by a person and every purchase is ultimately made by a person. So as
Mhm.
we focused on that, it helps all of the above. It helps us grow our businesses, and it also makes it a lot more sustainable because we're not avoiding and ghosting each other because we're avoiding each other's pitches. So just
Exactly.
creates more of a community effect.
Absolutely. I think especially when you're starting out, you don't know who's going to be your target market or how is it going to work. You have the website, you're building your funnels, you're doing all the business plans, but then it's like,
Mhm,
okay, now I have to find my lead, the person that's going to be my customer. And what
mhm,
I found in networking, as a chamber member and as a Better Business Bureau member, it's helped my brand visibility. And also, as you keep going to these networking events, you end up like working with the people that you know, you like, and you trust. And because they see you actively in the community, they're like more likely to be like, hey, you know what? I remember that guy Chris who spoke at this event, or and
mhm,
now he's showing up to the connected teams events. Oh, and I'm showing up there too. And one day it's gonna click and you're gonna have something to offer, and you're gonna have something to offer. And then maybe if it's a win-win, you make business. So it
mhm.
sometimes it just takes one conversation, but sometimes it takes them to trust you and know you to make you want to say, yes, I'm going to book this person, or yes, I want that person as my coach. So yeah, networking is definitely one way to gain leads and to grow your business, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So building your professional network for you, being in your city, what do you do? A lot of digital media or and networking, or you just make your leads more in person, LinkedIn? Like, what would you say for a person starting out? What would be the first step in order for them to grow their brand?
Yep, great question. In today's world, I would say it's both. You got to do both. You have to do both in person and online. So if you just do one or the other, you're missing out a whole lot, because all the people we meet in person, I want to connect with them online as well, because that's you stay in touch with them longer online,
Mhm.
because once you're connected, you see each other on the feed, and you could stay top of mind. You could continue building relationship, even with somebody you haven't seen in years. I mean, I'm sure everyone that has that experience, somebody you haven't physically seen in years, or maybe never even met them, but you could still feel like you have a very strong connection and relationship. And also the people that we meet online, to have at least, even if we can't meet them in person, but to at
Mhm.
least have a 15-minute phone call with them or a Zoom call to connect, because it changes everything. So what I would say for the new person is to do both. Get out there and meet people in person and connect with them online. The people that you meet online, try to at least schedule a phone call or a Zoom call. If not, have a coffee or a lunch with them.
Mhm. It makes a big difference. It really does. Because like even for you, for example, like we met in a city that we both don't live in. We met
Right.
at a conference in Lake Elsinore. Like
Yeah.
I came from Arizona, you came from Ohio, like totally two different people, two different industries. But
Mhm.
once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. You have that mindset of connecting and growing and becoming a better business owner by just connecting with the right people.
Mhm.
So I think thank you for making the time to keep connected, and as and in this day and age, you can start a business from home. There's no
Mhm.
really excuse, like there's so much power in Zooms, and you can even go to trainings. I mean, you have virtual networking and training, so it's great the amount of people that you can now touch, even if you're not in that city. So I love what you're doing with the Borgia events. I've gone to them and I've found them very resourceful for learning things in my business as well.
Yep, excellent. Yeah, I think we're a perfect example of that. It's been over 5 years, I think, that we met.
Yes,
It doesn't seem like that long
29,
ago, but it just flies by,
29.
but it's 5 years ago.
Yes, yeah. I was barely year 3 in my business. So when I went to that. So now it's gonna be 8. It's already 8. Yeah, it's already 8.
Yep, and
So
congrats. Congrats on all your success and growth.
thank you. It took a long time. I mean, I had the day job for the longest time on top of my business. So I was like 60, 80-hour weeks of like building and networking and figuring out who I needed to be in my circle as I grew. And it's been a journey. We had to leverage, we all went through COVID where we had to stop certain aspects of our business. Like for me, I was strictly an event firm when I first started, and
Mhm,
then after COVID, I pivoted more on the digital side and the PR side where I could coach and consult differently. And it's really made me learn more and pivot. And with any business, if you're not pivoting, if you're not learning the trends, then you're
mhm.
behind,
Yeah.
especially with marketing. It's grown from guerrilla marketing and newspapers and TV to also digital media. So it's a whole campaign that we're doing, no matter the business you're in. Because if you are a
Mhm,
business, you're going to invest in the way you look online. You're going to invest in your team. The way your website looks. I mean, it's a whole campaign that comes
mhm,
together. Even if you're a clothing store, doesn't matter
mhm.
what you are. So yeah, the more invested you are, the better off your brand will be.
Yep,
Um,
absolutely.
and meaningful connections. How do you know, Chris, in your events, because you do a lot of events for networking purposes and for business owners, how do you know when that connection is actually meaningful to you?
Yeah, I think the key is to connect with the person behind the business. And what I mean by that is oftentimes we'll go to events and it's the same question that we ask all the time. What's your name and what do you do? What's your name? What do you do? What's your name? What do you do? And we
Mhm.
don't often connect with somebody's profession. It's rare that we connect with somebody's profession. And for
Yes.
everyone out there, you probably experienced a time where you shared what you do, and people automatically were thinking of excuses why they don't need to know you any better anymore or any better, because like, "Oh, I already know somebody that does that, or I'm all set. No, I'm all good." And that's a tough way to start a conversation in a relationship when they're already pushing us off. Like, "No, I'm good. You don't need to give your pitch to
Yeah.
me. I don't need any of your services." And it keeps
Mhm.
us from building actual community. But when we get to connect with the person and get to know the person, it
Mhm.
changes the whole dynamic, because then
Right.
we care about what they do for a living. And that's
Yes.
where changing the way we network and the changing the environment that we network to where it's more collaborative in nature as
Yeah.
opposed to transactional and about the pitch and selling.
Yeah.
It just changes it to where we want to stay in touch with each other because we're
Mhm.
not selling each other things. But remember, our definition of networking is building relationships so that we can share resources and create a win-win situation together. So that allows us to serve one another, find, is a resource somebody else that we know? Is it some knowledge that we have? Is it skills that we have? So we have a lot of things to offer, and everyone has resources, and no one
Mhm.
has all of the resources. And that's where networking comes in, is we all need each other. But if we're not talking and communicating and getting to know each other first, we're not sharing
Mhm.
the resources that we do have because we haven't built that connection and the trust. So meaningful relationships is getting to know the actual person. And an easy way to do that is just ask what they do outside of work. If you, as soon as you transition into that topic, the whole energy shifts and it's just a natural conversation as opposed to one that's, focusing on what we're selling.
Exactly. And then, like from my own experience, being a Rotary member and then being on different nonprofit boards, you meet people at different stages in their business. And also you meet people with different interests. So sometimes you could learn a new interest like that you never done before. And then now you've built that connection differently because now you're like you're not only talking about work, you're talking about, oh, I like to sing. Oh, you like to sing. Oh, cool. And you build those little mini conversations that eventually they're comfortable with you and they're like, you know what, I trust this person, I want to work with this person, I know she has things in common with me, I know she or he is going to help me succeed because she genuinely cares about other things about me aside from what I can do for them.
Mhm.
So I think that's really important with any relationship, whether it's business or real life, you know making that touch point of saying hello, how are you doing, reaching out. It helps because it builds that trust and builds that relationship forward as the years go by, because then they're top of mind later in life when they might need you. It might not be today, but maybe in a few
Mhm.
days or weeks or months they'll be like, oh, I remember that person from that event. It's just building that memory, that lasting memory.
Yeah, and I want to compliment you too, because that's something you've done a very good job of throughout the years, is just randomly sending a good morning message, or if it's a holiday or birthday or whatever it is, but you're one of the most thoughtful people out there and intentionally sending these messages out, because I know you're sending it individually. So it's
Yes.
appreciated to where you're doing that outreach throughout the year. So I just want to commend you on that and applaud you, because it's just awesome, and I enjoy receiving them.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. But you do too. You always keep me connected with your newsletter. And then whenever I have reach out for a question, you've always been available to answer and help me to understand different things. Like the one thing that like really stuck out was like when you talked to me about scaling the business. And I remember a couple years ago you had said like, look at your model, look at like who your target market is, like just general stuff that like I kind of knew in my mind, but I was like, that was a good idea. Like, let me try to implement that. And the minute I started implementing those ideas, I was like, wow, he was obviously he's done his research. He knows how the market is. He's in a different business, but he knows what it means to scale and how to scale. Because sometimes you're afraid to scale because you have to invest maybe more money or more time or more
Mhm.
resources of people that need to help you to scale. Because when you're scaling, you want to also remember the quality work that you give, not always quantity, because quantity means yes, more money in your dollars, but if you're not giving quality work, then you won't be able to get those really good reviews or people that are happy with the work that you've done.
Mhm.
So in scaling, I think, what would you say is your number one tip that you tell people when they're trying to scale their business?
Yeah, I think the main thing is to be able to know who you're serving and focus on who you're serving and what their needs are. Because
Mhm.
if you like, I think it goes hand in hand with what you're talking about with the quality of work and actually delivering on the product. Because I'm sure
Mhm.
we've all seen out there where people are great at sales, but not so
Yes.
good at delivering the product. And
Mhm.
I think that's just a sure way to failure more than success. It's short-term success.
Yeah.
So to me, scaling is about really understanding who your audience is and what their needs are, and consistently delivering and helping them achieve what they want. Is the whole saying that if we help other people get what they want, you ultimately get everything that you want. And
Yeah.
so so to me, scaling is about understanding who you're serving, what their needs are, and just
Mhm.
helping them achieve that, because that's what they're paying you money for. No matter what your product or services that you're offering, they're paying
Mhm.
not to have that itself, but for the result that they get out of it.
Yes, yes. And then also, like, as as they work with you, they build that trust factor, and then later, if you've done a great job for them, they might think of you again for another thing that they may need, or maybe you might know a resource or a network in your network that can help them.
Mhm.
Like, I'm all about building, relationships with these different businesses, because down the road, you don't know if, like, maybe they might need someone like you to come into their community and run a networking event, or maybe might need to learn some digital aspects of what you do. And then there you got a coaching client or a consulting service, or maybe you help them, but then maybe they help you with something. So sometimes, it's a win-win. And sometimes it's one person needs something, the other one doesn't at the time, but maybe later on they do. So
Mhm.
things take time to manifest, no matter if it's your health, your wealth, your happiness, your business. And I think, like, there's different strategies that we have to use as we nurture these relationships.
Mhm.
So, what is your tip for nurturing relationships?
Yeah, so that's a challenge that most people have, is even understanding what does it mean to nurture relationships. So we understand the concept is like continually strengthen it, but
Mhm.
what do we practically do on a daily basis
Yeah.
to advance it? So first of all, when I first started networking, I didn't understand what networking was. I was still in that prospecting mode. And if somebody asked me, how do you add value to the marketplace? I would have told them the product that I was selling at the time. This is how I add value. And that's
Yeah.
literally all I saw as what I added as value. But
Yeah.
as I started to grow a network, then I realized that the network itself carried even more value than the product I was selling, because
Absolutely.
more people wanted to meet me for the network that I had rather
Mhm.
than the product that I was selling. But because I had a larger network, I also had more people that were buying the product.
Right.
So that's where, to me, it's having a framework of how to build these relationships, understanding that relationships have a strength. So let's say that we have a relationship on a scale of 1 to 10.
Mhm.
I will say that your 10 is the person that can go to your house,
Mhm.
open the fridge, see what you have to eat or drink, and just help themselves. That's a 10. They can come to your house and just go into your fridge. That's a really close friend. That's a 10. That's
That's
a 10
different.
is, yeah, that's a real friend. And then and vice versa. You can go to their house, open their fridge, just see what they have for leftovers, see what they have for drinks. You can help yourself. Or
Yeah.
the person that will help you move, that you don't even have to ask them. If they know you're moving,
Mhm.
they'll help. You already know they're in. You don't even have to ask them. I mean, you'll still ask them anyway, but you almost
Yes.
don't really have to, because you know they're going to be there to help you, because you would be there for that. So we have
Yeah.
very few tens in our lives, very few tens. We're lucky if we even have 1 10 at any point, at any time in our life. To have had a 10 in our
Mhm.
life is already a blessing. So
Yes.
understand that we're on a scale of 1 to 10, right? So
Mhm.
that's your 10. Somebody we just met, like we go to a chamber event or a networking event, and we just met them. They're a 1 because we have no clue who they are. They have no clue who we are. But
Right.
in a short 5 or 10 minute conversation, they can easily go from a 1 to a 3 or even a 5, depending on how your conversation went. So
Of course.
understanding that there's a scale, and now we went from a 1 to, let's say, a 3, and
Mhm.
we can now say, okay, how do I get this person to a 5? I had a great conversation. We talked about the weather and how it's nicer now outside. And we talked, and then so, you ask a little bit, and then you talked about dogs, and then, you look like pets, or you like travel. And okay, let's move it to a 5. And you scheduled so how do we get it from 5 to a 6? Maybe we schedule a 1-to-1 call. How do I get it to 7? Maybe we have a coffee or a lunch where
Mhm.
we can get together, or maybe make some other introductions for them, get it to a 7, and maybe over consistency over time, staying in touch, it
Mhm.
turns to 7 or 8. So understanding there's a scale is helpful in nurturing relationships to work towards that 10. We rarely, like I said, we'll rarely get to that 10 with everyone. You can't have a bunch of 10s because it's just impossible, physically and just bandwidth
Yeah.
wise. But
Yeah.
understand that, how do we get them from a 3 to a 5 to a 6, or a 6 to a 7? And so we understand,
Mhm.
because the strength of our relationship will
Mhm.
determine the size of our ask. So we can ask only in accordance to the strength of the relationship. So if you've seen those wedding fail videos where, they propose and then the person said no and they're embarrassed and they ran off and it was just really awkward and weird. So
Yeah.
in that situation, they asked before the relationship strength was at marriage proposal point. But
Yeah.
most proposals, both parties already know what the answer is before it's even asked. They're just
Mhm.
waiting for a moment. but both parties usually are already ready for that moment. Just say, okay, when's the right timing to where it's perfect situation to make this super special question for the proposal. So that's where so like if we're looking to get connected with influencers, CEOs, different people of different people that we want to actually connect with, it's
Mhm.
important to build that relationship so that so that they're willing to make that introduction when the time comes.
Yes, of course. Building a professional network is really, really important. And like you said, 1 to 10, that's a cool way of looking at it. I never thought of it like that, but it's true. Like it's true. With time, you grow that relationship and you grow that trust factor. And then when you're warmed up and you feel like ready, that's when you're like, hey, look, I know we've been connecting. Maybe via the text, phone, LinkedIn,
Mhm.
whatever it is, Facebook, Instagram, we follow each other. But sometimes it's just about timing. Sometimes you can know this person, but it's not the right timing. Or that they're in the network and then you're scaling and then you're like, oh, wait, I remember meeting this person. I know that I
Mhm.
trusted them. I know that I liked working with them or talking to them. Okay, let's go ahead and send an email. And then you send the email and then they send you back and boom, you've made business. So
Mhm.
it's just a matter of time, I would say. And then just like as you grow your network and you know like who are the people that you trust, who are the people that are just acquaintances, and who are the people that you can build a lasting partnership with.
Yep.
So yeah. The last question I have is your personal journey. So how long have you been a entrepreneur?
So I would say I've been an entrepreneur since I was a teenager because I didn't actually have a job till I graduated from college. But up until
Mhm.
then, I was detailing cars. So
Mhm.
I was, I think, an entrepreneur from the very beginning. Um, but
Okay.
uh, my but my advice would be to number one, just get started before you even feel ready. You'll learn more from trial and error and also from meeting people. So that's why I like networking because I've seen that it's not just about who we sell out there in the marketplace. Like I said, it's just a small piece of it. But we build relationships, we can get advice, we can get insights, we can learn from other people's experiences that have been where we're trying to go. Maybe they're a few steps ahead, or maybe they're on the journey with us that we can partner with them and have somebody to go on this journey together with. But to me, I would say to number one, get started wherever you're at, just
Yes.
get started, even if you're not ready, because it's something that has really changed things over the last few years for me and for our companies because
Mhm. Of
we're always shifting and changing with the
course.
times. And we live in a world now that is changing for almost like on a weekly basis. It seems like there's new things popping up and there's careers and professions and services now that didn't exist even 2 or 3 years ago.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, 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 definitely. So if you want to know more about Chris, you can follow him on Instagram at Connected with Chris Borgia. You can find out all about his events and things that he has going on. And da, 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 you can also find more information on emailing him, Chris at chrisborgia.com. Visit his website, www.chrisborgia.com. This has been the topic of networking and relationship building. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Chris, for being on the show. Guys, don't forget to schedule your consultation with Chris. He's amazing. He'll help you go to the next level. Also, follow One Self Consulting, where this video will be posted so you can watch it again. And for more information, www.oneselfconsulting.com. Thank you again, Chris. I really appreciate you being on the show. Look out for his free resource, www.becomeabetternetworker.com. It has all these amazing tips that we spoke about and more. So have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you, Chris, again for being on the show. This has been Inspiring Innovators. Do something today to find success and solutions so that you can be a happier person and inspire others. Have a good one, everyone. Good night.